大家好，我们是
LLS。
But we feel the situation is improving. I think more than half of them have been vaccinated already in Sweden, so I think the situation would improve in a couple of months' time.
Yeah, most of us haven't got vaccinated right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we can introduce about us right now. My name is Uni, and guys, introduce.
Hello. My name is Joyce. I'm Tiffany.
Oh.
Yes, so we're a group of college students supported by Ministry of Education in Taiwan. And we are doing this project about the issues of youth losing to believe in themselves when entering the job. And the reason why we want to ask you the questions because I know you have webinars and like internship, so we want to ask questions like that.
Okay. Curiously, I mean, I don't know how this thing works because I got a similar request and I spoke to a few students from Taiwan, I think 3 weeks back or so.
Oh really? From Taiwan?
Yeah, and they had the same document that you sent me, the one from the ministry. So probably it might be that the ministry is supporting few groups or youth groups
and other groups.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's hard for me with the language, of course, but I think they were called, the group was called Green Hook or something.
We know them.
You know them, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a conversation on that, on bioenergy, on jobs, on like careers and so on. So yeah, happy to talk and support you guys as well.
Yeah, thank you for you giving us these opportunities. Yeah. So I think before we start to ask questions, we want to ask if you are willing to allow us to record and take photos during the interview. Really?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. I think we will use this for promotion on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, sorry?
For promotion.
Yeah, sure, you can post that, but we don't have an Instagram account. We feel
Facebook.
It's Facebook, yes.
Okay.
Search for World Bioenergy Association.
Okay, thank you. So I think we can start with our first question is, what inspired you to establish this NGO?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't establish the NGO, actually. The NGO was established in 2008. And I joined the organization as a project officer in 2014 after my master's degree. And so I've been working with the World Bioenergy Association for 7.5 years now.
Wow!
And the
7.5 years.
Yeah, very, very, very long time, considering the careers now. And the mission is quite simple, that we promote bioenergy, biomass technologies, policies, markets for our members. We've got quite a few members in our network, and we try to support them promoting anything related to bioenergy.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So we have searched like you have awareness for promoting, right? And is there any limit for the participant, or anyone want to attend it is okay?
No, I mean, our principle is everything is public, everything's open, open access for everyone. So it's not just the webinars, so the reports and everything is public information. So for example, the webinars, it's open for everyone, although it depends on the interest. People, if you're interested to join, you can join. But we get participants from 80-85 countries or so every time we organize a webinar. So it's open for everyone who's interested in that topic.
Yeah, it sounds like interesting in bioenergy is important, right?
Yeah, it's of course we do a lot of bioenergy webinars, but we also together with other partners we do kind of webinars on renewable energy also, together with bioenergy, together with solar, wind, other technologies. So we've done a webinar on that also. So anyone who's interested surely can join and attend and ask questions and get access to presentations and so on after the webinar.
And for the presentation, is this presented by the members of your organizations?
Yeah, typically our webinars, and that's the way we it's a what do you say, a benefit for a member is that they get an opportunity, a platform to showcase their technology or products or equipment and so on. So typically we limit the people who present to our member companies, but sometimes we don't. Not all companies are our members. There are many other companies who are doing good work on bioenergy. So sometimes we do invite non-members also to come and make presentations, but we typically limit that. We ideally we promote our members to make presentations.
Oh, so non-members is still like vital in your organizations, because more non-members you have, the organization will be bigger and more successful, right?
Yeah, it's two ways. As I said, one, we don't cover the whole sector, so there are many non-members, and we're doing great work, and we want to showcase that. That's one.
Yeah.
But also from our own perspective, if a non-member comes and makes a presentation, so they see a value in World Bioenergy Association, so typically they join the association after doing that webinar. So it's also beneficial for us. So it works both ways. So we're happy to have sometimes non-members, and we've had them in the past webinars also.
Yeah. So but now is the pandemic right now, so the non-members will still attend your activities or like changing into online, because we face these problems right now.
Yeah, before 2020, 2019 and before, we've never done maybe we would have done one webinar a year or something like that. Our focus has always been physical events, so conferences, workshops, seminars, or study trips to different parts. And we feel it gives a good opportunity to, when you meet physically and talk face to face, that's of course a lot better than, like looking at a screen, and you build a better connection when you network on physical events, and that has been missing, of course. But of course, with the pandemic situation, we are unable, because of travel regulations and restrictions and so on, we can't have physical events. So that's why we've been doing a lot of webinars. But the positive thing is, if we do a physical conference or event, maybe 100 people or so can attend, whereas a webinar you can get like 400-500 people in the same platform. So more people are able to get access to the information through webinars. So that's also positive.
Yeah, it sounds like although it sounds bad, but also bring us some positive things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I have a question, like, because we are still the little team, and is there any advice for us to recruit team members more, or like volunteers?
Curious to know first, like, what's your background, or what are you studying actually? What are you courses on? I don't know if you're high school graduates or college graduates, or what's your background, so I'd be curious to know that.
Oh, we're all college students right now.
And what kind of degree or course that you're studying, most of you?
For me, I was studying in education. Yes, and Tiffany's studied in
Statistics.
yeah.
Yeah. And we all have different majors.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're also from different schools, but we are all college students.
So that would be a bachelor degree that you're studying.
Pardon?
I mean, is it a bachelor's degree that you're studying?
Yeah.
Okay. No, good. But I didn't understand the question that you had. You mean in terms of volunteer, or what was that question you had?
Because if we want to help us for a workshop in the future, but I think if all of member is the person is not still enough for holding a workshop, so we must need some volunteers. And I want to ask like how to record them better.
Still haven't understood the question.
Oh really? Yeah.
I didn't understand the question. Could you clarify that?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so like how do you because you have internship, right?
Yes.
And what makes you want to record the interns?
The motivation to recruit interns is, of course, there's always a shortage of resources at the office because there's so much to do and so little time to do those things. But at the same time, so that's one reason is that there's a lot of interesting work that needs to be done, and we need a lot of support or human resources, and sometimes it's not easy because some of the work is kind of short term, a couple of months or 3 months rather than a whole year. So for those short term periods, we take in interns. Before pandemic, physical interns, we were having them in Stockholm. But post pandemic now, we've been having kind of virtual internships. But I think we'll have soon start taking physical interns from August, September or so. So one reason, there's a lot of interesting work which we need some support. But at the same time, for candidates or students who apply are typically in a gap year, you're right now in a summer vacation, you're between semesters, and working or doing such an internship gives you kind of this exposure to the industry, which is typically not possible in a university. So this internship opportunities are kind of exposure opportunity for the students to know kind of what's the latest technologies, what's the latest policies, what's happening in that particular sector, and also help kind of them decide on future career. Maybe there's some technology that you want to look at, or some policies you're interested in. Maybe that's why you want to do a master's or something like that. So also give you some sort of give the students some sort of a guidance on the latest developments, and that's why they've kind of joined the internship program as well.
Yeah, so internship did help the promotion in bioenergy, right?
It depends. Interns, most of them, they of course work somewhat related to bioenergy. Whether it's helping us with some of our fact sheets on technologies, or helping with statistics. We have a statistics report. So some of them help us gather data, analyze the data, and then of course present that data in a nice format for our reports. But we also have interns, say, specifically for communication, for example, because as an association, our main work is kind of advocacy. And for that,
right?
Yeah, communication, advocacy, outreach activities, which is important. And so we take in some interns who help us kind of maybe change the communication plan that we have, or propose effective methods in ways in which we can communicate better. So some people work only on communication, although everything is somewhat related to bioenergy, of course.
Yeah, you sound awesome. Thank you. And I have finished my questions. I think Mark has some questions right now.
How to talk about bioenergy? I didn't understand. Sorry, could you repeat that?
He means like, what's the future's vision you want to achieve in the future?
For bioenergy.
Yes, for your organization.
Yeah, I mean our kind of mission is basically kind of two ways for that sector. Two things. Number one is to put bioenergy on the world map, because there's a lot of people who don't know much about bioenergy, don't know much about the potential, don't know much about the technology, don't know much about the benefits the sector brings in. So one way is that we try to put as much information, factual information or out there is one way we try to promote the sector, and the other way is to facilitate technology transfer and market development for some of the companies, because there's a lot of regions where there is resources but there's a lack of proper technology, availability of low cost equipment for utilizing that. So we try to facilitate kind of network for companies to kind of interact between different regions and to understand different markets and policy developments and so on. So that kind of facilitating business technology transfer is something we work and we promote as well. And we feel as a sector, bioenergy has a very good future. I mean, now it's the largest renewable energy source, and we feel whether we look at other international climate and energy discussions happening, and then the reports that come out, whether it's from the UN or i.e. the International Energy Agency and so on, all they say is that we need a lot more bioenergy in the future, and so we feel the sector also has a very good future ahead.
Yeah, understand. Thank you. And Joyce, have some questions?
Yes. Hello. I have a question about how long does your internship last, and will the foreigners be accepted, just like we? Yes.
Yeah, there's no fixed time as such for internship. Ideally, on an average, it's about 3 months, because it's between semesters and usually have a break of 3 months. So on an average, people work for 3 months. Anything longer is not, we don't recommend it, because then it's better than you actually kind of work as an employee rather than as an intern. 6 months, 10 months internship doesn't make sense. At the same time, less than 3 months is also doesn't make sense, because you won't learn anything. So 3 months, 3 to 4 months is kind of the ideal time that we look at. But also we ask the students, like, how long are you available also? So it's not just us who put the time. And in terms of kind of international interns, of course, I mean, this year we had interns from South Africa, from Spain. Now we're going to have an intern from Turkey, from UK also. We had people from the US, we had people from Brazil, we had people from India also. So it's only that when it's an internship, it's not a kind of an employment. So ideally it's someone who's, who has some studies or something in Europe actually, because then it's easy to come to Stockholm and then work in Stockholm, rather than say someone from Taiwan coming to Stockholm to do an internship. It's just logistics, it's a bit challenging. So typically it's people who are studying nearby who ideally go for this internship, but we are kind of open. I mean, we had some people from the US also come in and work to do an internship as part of their coursework or part of their degree work. So absolutely open for international students also.
It sounds like you have multicultural interns, right?
I mean, yeah, because there is interest for bioenergy around the world. It's a lot of interesting work happening. So at the same time, Stockholm, Sweden is a very good example of sustainability, of green technologies, of bioenergy. And Stockholm is a wonderful city for students and for people. They love coming to Stockholm and spending the summer here. So for us, it's not a problem, and we are glad to have such kind of diversity in our program also.
So if we want to join, we can apply for the internship.
Absolutely. I mean, we look up on our website in the section "Work with Us." There's details on internship. So it's basically just what we look at is the motivation for the students, like why they are interested in, say, bioenergy or renewable energy. It doesn't have to be specifically bioenergy or renewable energy, climate change, global warming, and these kind of issues. Like, why are you interested in that? And what are your expectations? What do you want to do? Help improve communication, or help look at certain technologies, or learn some new technologies or new policies. So it's everything's based on the motivation of the candidate, and based on that we kind of decide whether to have the candidates or not. So if you're interested in bioenergy or renewable energy, and you want to visit Stockholm and work for a couple of months, it's always we're always open.
Yes, thank you. So that's all the questions we have.
I got
Given
one
you have
question.
questions.
Yes. Can I ask? Do you think there are more and more students wanting to be engaged in the bioenergy issues? Do you think this industry is more and more popular between the students?
Yeah, excellent question actually, because when I did my bachelor's degree, I'm a chemical engineer. My bachelor's degree was 2006 to 2010, so about 10, 11 years, 12 years back. Then at that time there was no courses we had on bioenergy or even renewable energy. Talking about India, that's where I come from, and that's where I studied initially. But what I see now is there's a lot of courses focusing on renewable energy, on technologies and policies now, and these courses don't just come up like that. They come up because there is an interest, not just from the academic sector, from the faculty, but also from the students to take up these. Initially, some of them I've seen are like electives where you can actually choose them, but I see more of these courses being integrated into the curriculum of engineering or sciences and so on. And so that kind of shows there is an interest in these technologies for students to study. And basically, just looking at the future, when you talk about climate change and global warming, and you talk of renewable energy technologies are the future. I mean, everybody is planning on moving away from coal or gas or oil to these technologies, and then we need a lot of engineers, we need a lot of analysts, we need a lot of policymakers and in that field. So I think this sector is kind of to say it's an evergreen sector. It will grow further, and if anyone's interested, I think there's a lot of interesting developments happening, a lot of good paying jobs, because you see so many companies, whether it's big coal companies shifting to biomass or solar or wind, and they need people, and I think as students, this is something I would, whenever I talk to any students, is to look at seriously at this sector. Maybe after a bachelor's, do a master's on sustainable energy or policies or communication. Also, it's very, very critical. Communication is an important aspect in all these discussions. And so, because there is a serious lack of higher skilled people in this workforce. So I would really suggest to seriously look at this as a career option also.
Oh, so it's more like combining bioenergy with their major, right?
Yeah, it doesn't specifically, you don't have to be very specific in your studies. So you can be, for at least from my experience, I studied sustainable energy, which is a very broad area. So we looked at solar, we looked at wind, we looked at grids, electric grids. We looked at storage. It's important to learn so many things initially when you're studying as a bachelor's degree. Take as many different courses, different technologies to get as much exposure as possible. But what I did in the meantime was to do projects related to biofuels, which was kind of an interest I got during my graduate studies. So that slowly kind of translated into my kind of the experience portfolio that I had, which I can use for applying for jobs and so on. So first, get as much wide exposure as possible. Don't do a course. I wouldn't recommend a course on like bachelor's of technology in bioenergy. I think that you don't have to be very specific on that. Try to be more broad. Learn about costs, learn about project developments, about technology, different technologies, and then you get an option to pick and choose later on. I would suggest so. But anything somewhat related to renewable energy would be very, very good.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think that's all the questions we have prepared. Is there any question you want to ask us?
No, I mean, I'm just curious as to the program or what are your plans. You have other interviews that you are doing, and then what do you plan to do with those interviews? I kind of, the previous group that I talked to, I saw they posted that on Instagram, and they sent me a link here, and they posted on Instagram like what did they talk about and so on. And I also sent them some suggestions of other energy organizations which could be of interest to talk to also. But I'm just curious from your side, what are your plans? Like, you have many interviews and then you make a report or Instagram post, or what's your plan?
Basically, we want to solve the low income in the younger generations, because that's the question we were met when we graduated from college.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
So I mean, if there's any questions related to bioenergy, or if there's any interest in internships or working in Sweden, for example, whether in your group or your other group, so yeah, happy to respond to any such queries in the future. And I will just say good luck with your career.
Can I have another more personal question? In your country, it's people more aware of the climate change, and they really take action to it. I mean, everyone.
You mean in Sweden where I'm working, or India where I come from?
Yeah. What about the comparison? Because I think Sweden, they have a lot of energy and eco-friendly stuff. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Just Sweden, excellent. One of the top, I would say, countries. Not just Sweden, the Nordic countries. Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Norway. One of the top countries on sustainability, and these include preserving green spaces or managing municipal waste, no landfilling, convert all waste to energy, focus more on, say, cycling and public walking rather than private transportation, so providing support for non-motorized transport. All fuels are converted to biofuels or electricity or solar, wind, and so on. So there's a lot of interesting developments and focus from the government in Sweden for sure, and also from the public. Many people use public transportation than cars, for example, because it's just a feeling to be kind of environmental friendly, and that's kind of inbuilt in the Swedish society. In India, of course, it's hard to kind of generalize, because India, Sweden is 9 million, India is 1.5 billion, so it's in terms of population and size, it's completely different. But the impacts of climate change are felt more severe in the Indian context than the Swedish context. Number one, because we are an agrarian economy. More than 50-60% of the labor force is in the agriculture sector, so the effects of climate change, droughts, floods, and so on, are seriously felt by the Indian agriculture sector, and they realize that the climate is changing. That's for sure. but the challenge is that to connect that to fossil fuels, coal, oil and gas, which are the main reasons for global warming. That change has to take place. It takes a long time to change, mainly because these fossil fuels provide electricity, cheap electricity to the people, to millions of people in India, and at the same time there are millions who still don't have access to electricity. So there's a question of access of electricity, affordable energy for these fossil fuel sector. So it takes some time for the shift to happen. Everybody knows in India that climate's changing and that we need to be more, at least in the energy system, that we need to do the change, but that will take time. But if you just talk about, say, the environment, there is an awareness, but there is just a kind of an inertia to do things, to take steps. So it is a bit hard because it's just a diverse country. But compared to, say, the past 10 or 15 years to now, I think there is a lot more awareness.
Then how do you think of how to shorten the public's knowledge of from the Indians public and the Sweden public? I think they have different knowledge about climate change, right? And some of the environmental thoughts.
Yeah, the ground, the local situation is very different, of course, for both these countries. But I think a key role is being played, at least in India, by students, by people under 30, graduates or high school students who are studying these issues, because we didn't, or I wouldn't say I'm so old, but I'm still in a different generation than the students right now, and we didn't learn so much about energy issues or environmental issues. And even when we did learn, it was mainly as a coursework, which we don't follow much. You're like, okay, it's just courses. But now people are more aware of the challenges, mainly because of social media, mainly because of the news. They know what's happening. They know the ill effects of climate change and global warming, and that we need to do. And they're more willing to push the other generations also to take action. So I think there's a lot more awareness, and whether it's social media, news and other medium is pushing that information to this generation, the students or the youth generation, at least in the Indian context. And the change will take some time because it's a big country, but at least on a grassroots level we see a lot of changes already at the local level, whether it's from the policymakers, whether it's from activists, whether it's from students. We see a lot of focus on change, but on a national level it's difficult. It's a big country, but I think it's in the right direction, although it's a bit slow.
So it's more like push from the bottom to the government, right? Make public.
Yeah, and that's easy, and I think that's more acceptable than a top-down approach. Then a government saying, don't use cars on Sundays, for example. There was a government mandate saying don't use cars on Sundays because it's leading to pollution. People would say, government is saying we don't want to hear that. But if your neighbors and your sons and daughters say, don't use that car on Sundays, for example, then you will kind of, okay, yeah, I'll hear that. So any change from the grassroots level has more acceptance for change, and is more sustainable. Policies change now and then, sometimes depending on the government, sometimes depending on their interests. But when it comes from the local level, when it comes from your neighbors or your local community, that goes long term also. So that, and it's sustainable, that it will maintain, and that can have a replicating impact on other regions as well. So I think that's a important point, that it is grassroots or local level led.
Totally agree.
National.
But will you think that maybe they are aware because of it's getting worse, but for the kids they are aware of it, but they don't really can make money from it? will there be a gap? Like, should they choose the old industry and then earn some money, or should they focus on climate change and do some kind of like volunteering, I think, for more environmental public? Yeah.
Excellent question actually on that, because now in some contexts, in some regions, in some countries, there's already policies to move away from, say, fossil or traditional energy system to modern energy system. So if you study now, or if you want to study on coal or oil or gas, there is a risk of being kind of what you call stranded later on, that your skills might be, I think the version has like 40 minutes or so, I think.
40 minutes.
But
okay,
I thought
that's the last question.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, it was very interesting, the discussions. I mean, those were very, very relevant questions. So I felt happy also to answer those.
I think it's a worldwide question also.
Yeah. Very, very, very relevant. I mean,
be good to the earth, or
what we are looking at is also, we are planning on establishing a kind of a training program with other organizations, where it looks specifically at developing curriculum on renewable energy for students who are studying in their bachelor's degree. So we are because the curriculum is quite outdated, is what we feel now, and there's a need to update that, and we are actually planning on establishing like a coalition for developing this training material for bachelor's curriculum. And it's good to get your kind of perspectives or queries or these clarifications, for us also to understand what are the questions everybody else is also facing as students when we make our own plans to help develop this training material and so on. So happy to discuss those challenges.
Yeah, it's really helpful to us.
Yep.
So I think that's all the question we prepare, right? Is there anyone want to ask question? Okay, so I think, can we take a picture with you right now?
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah, thank you. So I will take the pictures right now, and look at me.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3. Okay, again, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. I'm really sorry for the sudden disappear.
That's fine. That's okay. I mean, I've had this hour free, so glad to join.
Yeah. So if you want to give us more advice or any thought you want to share with us later, you can email us or record it into a video to us. Yeah.
And we will put some detailed information also.
Yeah.
As I said, we don't have an Instagram account, but we do have a Facebook account where you can also track.
We can send a link to you.
Please do so. We'll surely post that or share the work that you're doing also.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you then. Have a good career.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, have a nice day.
Bye bye.
Bye.